All right, let's get into it. So, Shaun, how do you say your last name?
Umscheid.
Umscheid.
You betcha.
Okay. I was reading it and I was like, man, I'm going to botch that one. Umscheid. Most known for what? No way. Does that haunt you at night a little bit, or are you kind of just like,
No,
it's the tree that keeps giving fruit?
I'm super grateful. Like, I get it all the time. Like I always say, if you see me out, if you say what, no way, I'm usually gonna turn around. And like case in point, yesterday we were walking through the Top Fuel and at Bradenton, and there was a guy talking to his friend, and he said, "What? No way! That guy's here somewhere. I seen him." And so I turned around, walked up to him, and I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" Like,
Yeah.
I'm super grateful. It's changed our life, so I can't really be upset when people come up and say it to me, right?
Yeah, and it's not like an embarrassing one. Like some people get like their internet fame from like
Yeah.
an embarrassing thing, but I feel like yours is pretty awesome. I feel like you got to hit us with us
What?
with one to start.
What? No way.
How did that start then? Did you, when you first made the video, did it like hit gold, or was it like, oh, let me try this a few times?
So it all started with a bet with my wife. During COVID, we were bored and needed something to do. We had watched everything on Netflix, and so I looked at her. I was like, I'm starting a TikTok. And so it started out just with my welding business. She was doing cleaning videos and I was doing welding videos. And then I'd throw in the silly video every now and then and try to see if you could find something that would hit. And yeah, I watched a video of a guy using a wrench on a screwdriver. Like the wrench fits on it, right, for more torque. And I was like, what? No way. And so I videoed it. And I think I woke up like when I posted that, it was in the afternoon. And it was slow going at first. But when I woke up the next day, it was at like 5 million views, something like that. And like 10,000 new followers. And I was like, holy crap, like maybe this is that thing. So I tried it again. And yeah, that one hit too. So I decided, I was like, okay, either keep my welding profile or I start a new one. So I had another account for my Chevelle that we recently ran on Sick Week. Mm-hmm. And I decided, it was called the It's Just Money car. And no one wanted to see me build a Chevelle. Like I had 150 followers. So I switched it to What No Way and started posting there. And we grew that account to over 1 million followers in a couple months.
That's wild. So it is interesting to hear that you were actually trying to, make something happen on social media. It didn't just magically happen like some people probably assume.
Yeah, the whole welding thing, like that was like, I was kind of in a niche market there with some of the stuff I was building. So like my welding profile, I have over 150,000 followers on all of that as well. But yeah, you always throw in some silly ones and maybe something would hit, right? Like you watch all these people that have these huge accounts and you're like, oh man, it'd be cool to have that. But it changes everything about your life when you have a following like that.
Well, it's interesting too because it's so much more like quick, I feel like, with you. And I was with Garrett for a long time, and that was like a slow thing of fighting the YouTube uphill battle.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to see it. It's awesome to see it so quickly with things like TikTok, and you've clearly done it for a long time, but also it seems to have ballooned so aggressively. Like you're talking 1 million followers in a few months.
Yeah.
That's like crazy unheard of for somebody that's fighting a different uphill battle on like YouTube or Facebook. That's why TikTok's so great.
I mean, YouTube, it's a whole nother battle. Like we're in that fight right now, trying to get our YouTube following up. But yeah, like TikTok, it's changed a little bit over the last year, but I mean, it was easy. Once you find a formula, it was easy for me to get the views. Like within 3 seconds, you have to have something that catches people, and that's the What No Way.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I had, I think 20 or 30 videos that went over 10 million views, like in a row. And yeah, it's just crazy how the following can grow.
And then you have to quickly learn how to manage all of like actually extracting the right monetization out of things because you got to make it over a minute and like 6 seconds on TikTok or something.
So we don't get paid in Canada on TikTok.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that's a big misconception.
That hurts.
Everyone
That hurts to hear.
Yeah. So everyone assumes that I'm this big time millionaire. I'm making huge money on TikTok. I don't make nothing on TikTok. Like when I go
Well, they
live,
would take it all anyways in taxes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, but like when I go live and stuff, people can send gifts and stuff like that. So, I mean, we do make a little bit from people basically tipping us on our lives. And so that's cool, and we appreciate all that. But yeah, our biggest platform was actually Facebook. We didn't really know. It was actually my wife. She was like, we should start putting this on Facebook. And then we started seeing ads popping up, like when I'd be in my personal account and go on to the Nooo account, and I'd see an ad there. I'm like, well, if they're putting ads on, we got to be making something. And so then we start researching and everything, and yeah, like that's when things kind of like, okay, we can make money doing this, and we can actually sustain ourselves.
So, man, I mean, so you were just building this huge following on TikTok, and it wasn't immediately giving you any like return on the investment, and you had all these views and followers, and that's crazy to hear.
So,
that.
And that's the thing, we do some partnerships with some companies and stuff, and we get so much hate about it. They're like, oh, you're a sellout and this and that. I'm like, I don't make anything on these videos, posting to TikTok. So like, I'm trying to provide for my family.
I was going to say, what a sellout. You're trying to put food on your table.
Yeah, exactly. And it actually, like, everything that we do is stuff like we did a video for CRC with Evaporust. And I mean, that was a complete what in a way, because I had never seen this stuff before or used it. And that was a raw reaction. Like when I pulled the little fence tops out of there and they were completely rust free. And I was like, holy crap. Like, so I'm trying to show products.
Such an on-brand product. Too.
Yeah, exactly.
A welder using brake clean and cleaning products.
Yeah. But it's funny because people don't know that I do motorsports and stuff like that, and I use all these products, and I only push product. Well, I don't even push them. I show products that I use in my shop.
Yeah.
And so it's not so much selling out as just providing for my family and showing you guys what I like to use.
Well, you're trying to extract some value out of it, as you should. I mean, it'd be crazy to just kind of do it all for free and just put all that time and effort and money into it. I mean, there's got to be a lot of time, maybe not a huge monetary spend on some of these, because it seems like your shop has all this stuff already.
The biggest time consumer is finding the new content, because we've done so many that it's hard to, like, you search hacks on TikTok and I'm who pops up. So I can't even search them because it's my videos that pop up.
I'm sure some of them could be revisited though too.
Yeah, we've started going back and doing some and stuff like that. But yeah, I still have just an album full to go through, and it's hard to do them when you're on the road too, and stuff like that. But
yeah, that's interesting. But then, these are such evergreen things. They probably, you don't realize they start going viral again on other platforms. Like, oh, wow, I just got a bunch of notifications of this one thing.
Well, and that was when when we seen that TikTok, like we weren't making anything with TikTok. And then when we seen that Facebook, we were getting ads put on. So we started reposting all the TikTok ones to Facebook. And then we grew that up to 2.5 million followers really quickly, and getting the big views there. And then you're looking for, okay, what's the best way, the best time to post? And it turned into a job, really. So I had my welding business, plus I had this, and it got to the point where I had to make a choice. Like it was stressing me out so much. So I was like, okay, we've kind of replaced my welding business income, so let's try this for a year.
Yeah. I mean, you always have the welding business you could fire back up, but I mean, like those Facebook videos probably just will make residuals for quite a while.
Yeah.
And then you can put them on any new platform and they'll pretty much do the same thing within reason, I would imagine. Were you surprised by different things on Facebook doing well versus TikTok? Like, wow, that one did not as well on TikTok and Facebook loved it.
Yeah, we have a few videos that, I mean, we'd only get like maybe 100,000 views on TikTok, but then we post it to Facebook and it goes like 10 million views. And we kind of can gauge with our YouTube stuff or YouTube shorts. If the Facebook one does good, our YouTube one will usually do good too. And if the TikTok one does good, it's usually everything does good if TikTok does good. But yeah, it's so weird how some platform, like the difference in the platforms and how the algorithm works.
Yeah, and then YouTube's its own mystery.
Yeah, we're trying to figure that out, and the big thing that we're finding is like collaborations and stuff with the long form. The long form, I'm lost, and I'm trying to figure that out. But our short stuff, people get mad on our shorts because we don't swear on our YouTube shorts. I cut the swears out, so that's our clean platform. And they're like, why don't you swear? And this isn't you, and blah, blah. I'm like, I can't get monetized. Like, they'll cut my monetization if I
especially on a short. Because YouTube, I know it's supposed to be like the first couple minutes on like a longer video.
Yeah.
Then you can start swearing, but then, you know, how do you do that on a short?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But YouTube is weird. Like, I always talk to people about it not being like a social media platform as much as it is just like a TV platform. Like, the other ones are all social, so people share things to each other, and that's how your stuff seems to really work.
Yeah, and we see it with our kids. Like, YouTube is their go-to for watching TV, right? They go on YouTube, they'll watch some shorts, and then they'll just start playing long-form videos. So
yeah. So
I tell them
the whole family down to Florida then?
Yeah, so I drove down. I took, 5 days driving down with the car. We trailered it, and then the family flew down. Just I wasn't gonna have them in the. I didn't want them to have to drive that far with me.
Yeah, that would have been rough.
But they are driving home with me, so that'll be interesting.
They do get the round trip. They get the trip back.
Yeah.
How far up into Canada are you? Where are you at?
So we're in southern Alberta. So we're clear across the whole continent, basically.
Okay.
Right above Great Falls, Montana.
Oh, okay. So it is a bit of a trip down.
Yeah.
And then you came down and you went to Blueprint.
All right, guys. Now a quick word from our sponsors. I'm just kidding. There's no sponsors on this. This is a blank piece of paper. If you guys like what you're watching here, want to support more, I only ask one thing. Hit the subscribe button. Follow along. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, leave a review. It helps us out a lot. I don't know. Share this with a friend. Don't buy anything. Don't do anything else. I'm not asking any of this stuff. There's no cheesy sponsors here. I'm not trying to sell you something, but thank you guys so much for listening. Back to the podcast.
Yeah, so we stopped in Billings, Montana our first day. We got the car tinted because it has no AC, so I was like, I want tint on this thing just with the Florida sun. Got it tinted, and then we drove to Nebraska, went and checked out Blueprint Engines because we're running their 540. And then we went to Pro Charger in Kansas City and stopped there. Then we went to Bowling Green, and because we're getting some RC components made for the car. And then I basically from there drove straight through to Gainesville. So
Yeah. So that Blueprint facility is pretty awesome, right?
yeah,
It's huge.
man, it is. You walk in there, and as I drove up, I'm like, oh, this is a pretty big place. But then you get inside, and you're like, holy crap, this is huge.
Yeah.
Like, and the automation they have there is just, it's second to none. But like the storage they have, like I thought we had done the tour, and he's like, oh, let's go check out our parts storage. And I was like, holy crap. He's like, yeah, we'll never, like they had a thing during COVID where they were running out of parts, like everyone. And so now they added on, and I mean, they'll never, as Kel said, he's like, we'll never run out of parts. We'll never have that problem again.
It's crazy how big that whole like deal is. You don't realize when you're like talking to them or ordering stuff from them, and we dealt with them a little bit when I was with Garrett, and then you're like, oh, you guys sell a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I think they put out like 80 engines a day. And like the biggest thing, it's so funny you see on Facebook and on the groups and they don't dyno nothing and this and that. I got to dyno one of their LS engines. Every single engine goes through a dyno and it's pretty cool. Like how big the facility is, you can't hear the engines running on one end, but as you start getting closer, you can hear it in the background, them revving out. And that was my favorite part, was seeing the dyno facility.
It was crazy when we were in Australia with a burnout car. We crumpled an engine. You know, you opened, like, you took the intake off, and it was all of the engine was up there, and it was making like 1,500 horsepower on methanol.
Yeah,
they break.
Yeah,
there was one within 20 minutes from us, the same engine in a crate that we got, a blueprint engine, and I was like, wow, what are the chances? We're in Australia, across the world right now. Yeah. And there's a blueprint engine at this shop sitting there. They were like, yeah, it's ready to go.
Yeah, they send them all over. And I didn't know how far they sent stuff. And then, like, once you get talking to them and stuff, and there's a speed shop in Lethbridge, Alberta, and I went in there, and then I started noticing, okay, he's a dealer for blueprint too. And, like, you see him more and more now that you look at it. There was actually a few blueprints that were on Sick Week too that I noticed.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of those, I mean, it's perfect for like a car like yours. It makes complete sense to put a blueprint engine in those deals, because you buy, I mean, 200 horsepower big block from the factory.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's that car originally was going to be an LS platform with twin turbos like everyone. And
it's cool for a reason.
Yeah. We were at SEMA, and we got talking with Robbie Layton about my YouTube and how to get it going. And he's like, well, build a car. He's like, you're going to have car guys and they'll hop on. And so we started talking about my Chevelle, and we were in the ProCharger booth, and then ProCharger came up and they're like, hey, if you're building something, we'd like to be a part of it. Yep. And so we're like, and I was still in the LS and twin turbo mindset. And then I got thinking, I'm like, you know what, a 70s Chevelle needs a big block. So then that's when we went and talked to Blueprint and found out about their Power Adder edition. And I was like, oh man. And then I seen Engine Masters where they had my engine on a dyno with the same ProCharger and what power it did. I'm like, yeah, that's what we got to do.
Yeah. So what was it making now at, like, for Sick Week?
So what
was the setup on it and everything?
So we didn't have the ProCharger on it just because I had 400 miles on it. We got snowed out back home. I couldn't test it or anything. So I was like, let's just take it down NA and run it. And we went down we were at KSR Performance, and Kevin was just awesome. Like we were in his shop for a week and a half, 2 weeks working on the car, which shouldn't have been, but he was gracious enough to give us a hoist. But he got it on the dyno, and we were 480, I think is what it maxed out to the wheels, NA.
Oh, that's pretty awesome.
And so we're running the Holly Sniper 2, and we had that thing maxed out. Yeah. So it has more in it. It's just like if we were to put a single plane intake on it and more fuel, we could get more out of it. But I mean, the Sniper was running at 85%, and
so that's a good thing the ProCharger wasn't.
Yeah, like we couldn't have ran the ProCharger, but
well, it'll probably run at 90% when you get it back to Canada too, or higher.
Yeah,
probably higher altitude.
Yeah, we're 3,500 feet.
Yeah, so it's probably going to be just out of fuel.
Yeah,
when you get it back.
But I mean, we're pulling it straight into the shop. The engine's coming out because we're getting ready for the summer. So we're going to Holly's got a new high ram for big blocks. We're going to put a high ram on it, multi-port injection, dominator system. I was like, okay, now it's broken now. Let's
So PRI was pretty fruitful for you then, I would say.
Yeah, PRI and SEMA, like the companies that hopped on to help us out was just huge. Like when I started this build, it was kind of like a 3-year project. I was like, okay, we'll put just a stock 454 in it. We'll have some fun with it. I opened up the stock 54 or 454 I had, and it was full of mice. And then
The actual engine was.
yeah. So then the blueprint showed up, and I was like, well, I guess we'll skip a couple steps here and throw that in. And Holly was huge with everything they sent out for the car, and FTI with the Turbo 400. We didn't have any transmission problems or nothing. Moser, like we talked to them at PRI 2 years ago, and like I was just wanted to put one of their 12 bolts in, and so we were talking on the phone, and boxes show up at my door, and here there's a Fab 9.9-inch sitting there. So
Real race car shit, it sounds
yeah.
like.
Well, and then we're like, if we're going to do this, if we're skipping all these steps, I don't want to have to rebuild this car over and over and over, because it's just me in the shop, right? So,
Yeah.
So we tried to do everything that we could, the best parts that we could to start with. And we're finding out that some of the best parts that are off the shelf might not be the best for what we're doing. So we do have to change some stuff.
Yeah.
And add some new stuff, like an anti-roll bar's the first thing it has to get, because the car twists so much off. It has that A-body twist, right?
Like Garrett's El Camino.
Yeah, exactly.
and then it'll just look like that as it gets more power.
Yeah. Yeah, so Sick Week was really eye-opening for like doing, like, I don't know anything about racing, so we're trying to learn as we go, and it was really eye-opening with the people that came over. Well, you should try this and you should do this. And like, I mean, we broke both the passenger side shocks on it. And we had Mike Finnegan tell it, like, we were trying to figure out how to get it from twisting down and so hard. And he's like, oh, put a strap on the air. He's like, chain it down. I was like, what? No way. And I was like, that's derby stuff. Like, we do that in Demolition Derby. And he's like, yeah, well, you got to limit the travel on the one side. So, yeah, we took a ratchet strap at Gainesville, and we strapped the driver's side A-arm down, and that kept it from twisting so much. But also, we lost the weight transfer and blew the tires off. So
Yeah. Where else in the world are you going to have Mike Finnegan helping you get your, you know, raggedy, still-ish car, blown out shocks down the track?
Well, it was
using ratchet straps.
It was funny, like we hadn't really talked to him at all that week, and then where we were parked at Gainesville, we were right beside one of the semis, and they were parked on the other side, and they got so hot in the sun, they came over to the shade and parked right beside us, so we got to talk to him quite a bit, and he's like, what issues are you having? And I told him, he's like, yeah, ratchet strap. I was like, what? No way.
I always tell everyone, Mike Finnegan's as cool as you'd actually imagine him to be.
He is
like
awesome.
Just as cool as you'd imagine. That's Mike.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, they showed up at KSR just as we were pulling the Chevelle out to burn a set of tires off. So it was pretty cool. I was on Newburn's video he put out the other day of their Sick Week, and
I feel like that's such a perfect Sick Week car, though. Your deal, it's like there's so many cars that fit that exact like vibe at Sick Week. The big block, big body, older car. Not everything is the best of the best yet. I mean, I'm sure it's on its way to the shop now, but blown out suspension.
Well, and like the whole idea with the car was to build something that I can still daily drive and take the kids with. And like we went testing out at Gainesville before Sick Week, and I had the car seat in the back seat because it's full interior. And Frank Hawley was out there, and he's like, oh, let me take a look. And he opens up the back door, and the car seat's there. He's like, why is there a car seat in here? I said, because I was hauling the kids around last week. Like,
yeah. So is the plan to put a full cage in it then too?
Well, it's got a 850. It's got an 850 cage.
Okay.
Currently, I didn't want to tear it apart to redo it, so I built the cage in the car with enough room for people in the back seat. It's full interior.
Mm-hmm.
That was the biggest challenge, was building the cage to where I could still use the back seat. But being a four-door, it makes it super easy.
Yeah.
to get in and out. But yeah, it has a 850 cert cage in it.
That's cool.
And so when we were talking at SEMA about doing this car, we're like, oh, everyone says they have a 10-second car. Everyone. Let's build a 9-second car. Well, then your budget goes out the window because everything is SFI certified. So we have like our flywheel, our bell housing, everything on that car is SFI certified so that we can go those speeds if we ever get there. But it's a 4,000 pound car, so we'll struggle.
We're talking 135, 140 miles an hour.
Yeah. We did get it up to 120. Our last pass on sick week was an 11:13 at 120. And I was over the moon about that. That was just awesome.
Yeah, I mean, NA being that close to the 10s is pretty cool, and that's a big car.
Yeah, 4,200 pounds with me in it.
Yeah.
So we're going to cut some weight on it too. Like we took the hood off and the trunk lid off and the roof rack off for that pass. But I mean, really probably should have kept the hood or the trunk lid on just for aero. And talking with Kyle from Boosted Boys, that's what he said. He's like, why'd you take all this off? And I'm like, save weight. And he's like, you're probably actually losing like with the aerodynamics now. And he explained it. I was like, yeah, I get. He's like, you're gonna be pissed if you run 11.0 and you might have got it with a bit of aero, like up at 120 mile an hour, and then it pulled to 11:13. And I was like, oh shit.
He doesn't realize though, when he's talking about Honda hoods, they're very light.
Yeah.
So it might not help very much on a Honda, but when you're talking about that hood, weighs a ton.
Yeah, I think that hood's about 80 pounds.
Yeah, his hood on his minivan's probably like 20,
Yeah.
so it's worth leaving on.
Yeah.
That's the difference in a big American-made V8.
But, yeah, so we're gonna do a fiberglass hood on it, fiberglass trunk lid, and then the brakes. I mean, that's huge. Like Kevin at KSR, I took the front wheels off, and he's like, "Oh, you're running like full out stock brakes." He's like, if you put some decent brakes on that, you'll save a pile of weight. So I'd like to put a rack steering on it and do some sort of better brakes to save some weight.
Yeah.
But we should be able to get it into like that 3,800 pound range. I don't know. We'll see once.
So do you have a track near you, or where would you have to go?
So our closest track is about 2.5 hours away.
Okay.
So, and I mean, the track that was the closest, they closed it down. So we have one 2.5, and then one 3.5, and then one 4.5. So, and then actually airport drags are starting to get pretty popular around us.
Okay.
So we got a few of those races that we're going to as well.
Yeah, I know they do a drag and drive up that way as well.
Yeah, Miles of Mayhem. So
Yeah.
we're entered into that. We were entered last year, and we were going to take Plan B, but it needs a transmission. So, but yeah, we're looking forward to that. It's all 8th mile, I think. So
Yeah, I got a few friends that do that one every year. Seems like a pretty cool one through
Yeah.
I guess it seems pretty barren, some of the drives.
yeah, it's just flat gross land.
Just nothing and just trees.
Yeah, like the drives here, it would have been all of our drives. We missed out on all the scenery because we were driving so late at night, like the beach and all that
Happens
stuff.
to me every time.
But yeah, like back home, I mean, if we're driving at night, you aren't missing anything.
I always make the joke, like, I've never seen a checkpoint in the sunlight.
Yeah.
Like, there's all these checkpoints, and I see people at them and having fun on social media, and like,
Yeah.
I get there when they're closed or it's dark.
Well, and that was the same with us. I was so excited to drive up like Daytona Beach and stuff like that. I was like, that's going to be so awesome. And then you see all the pictures of people that have already gone through, and you're just watching the sun go down, and then you get there, it's pitch black, and you don't know where you are. And,
Yeah.
But we did get some cool night pictures of the car, like going past the Hard Rock and stuff like that. So that was cool.
Yeah. So have you spent much time in America then, in the U.S.?
Yeah, we've been coming down for demolition derbies and stuff like that, and we've been in Florida for about a month now.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
And-
I didn't realize that it's been that long already.
Yeah, I left January 6th and drove down and then worked on the car for basically a week and a half. We had a whole schedule of stuff that we were going to do with the car down here. And then we ended up breaking it on testing. So then it was back in the shop. And then we find more stuff broke with it. And
Yeah, once Kevin starts to look at it too much too, you gotta be like, stop, Kevin. Stop looking at it.
Well, it wasn't him. Like, we went out testing at Gainesville and we pulled, well, like Frank said, he's like, okay, let's turn it up and work on your 60 foot now. And then we turned it up and yeah, we broke the diff. And so we get it back to the shop, and so I get the new diff, and I put that in and everything. And as I'm setting the car down, I notice one of the wheels do something wonky. I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. So back up, and all the bushings in the front end were gone. And I mean, they were all new, but I think it was a mix between using the wrong grease and the headers. So I have Lemon's headers that come on the outside of the frame and basically wrap around the bushings. So it just melted them and heated them up, and so now we got heat shield over everything, which definitely fixed it. But yeah, it was just another thing. So I was waiting for parts, and yeah, Kevin pointed out a few things that I should look at, but it was just like, no, I'm done.
So what was your fabrication business before?
So my welding shop was mostly repair work. I did a lot of aluminum, like slip tanks, and one of the things that I was doing was guitar fire pits. Like, I was making a fire pit that looked like a guitar and had strings on it, and we sold quite a bit of those. And then washer fluid tanks for Peterbilt. Just one of my buddies, he came to me and he's like, he handed me a plastic tank and he's like, can you build me this in metal? Because it keeps breaking and it's $350. And I said, well, yeah, I can. It's going to cost you probably $400. And he's like, that's fine, because I put 4 of these plastic ones in my truck already. So I started building those, and that was kind of, when I got that onto TikTok, that's what grew my welding business on TikTok and got me the following. I was getting phone calls, sending them all over the States. And yeah, but a lot of my work was repair work for farmers and heavy equipment repair and stuff like that. So there's always going to be a need for that. So that's why when we kind of shut the shop down to do social media, I was like, we can always go back to fixing.
Farmers will keep breaking their shit.
Oh, yeah.
They're needing their frames fixed on their combines and shit like that.
It's well, in my area, there's only a few welders, so there's more work than one guy can handle. Like,
so they're probably pretty mad that you.
I'm sure
you get calls and messages all the time.
I still get calls almost daily, and there's a few customers that are pretty upset that I'm not welding now. But it's we're just trying to. This is a lot less hard on the body too, right? Like,
yeah.
And I'm home more and not gone all the time. And especially during like peak season, like harvest and when guys are planting. I mean, you're out 2-3 in the morning to fix a seed drill because they need to get going in the morning, right?
Yeah.
So
you didn't think about just firing it up for peak season and then just the rest of it just be like, nope, sorry guys, it's cold. I don't want to do anything.
I would like to, but it gets to the point where like if you get a big project in the shop that has a timeline to get done, and now we're going out to events and stuff, and it got to be too much where it was, okay, well, now I'm rushing to get this job done and I'm not doing it the way I want to do it. It needs more time, but I have to go on the road here this weekend and gone for 4 days, but I have to get it done. So it was just like, no, I don't want to leave anyone hanging, so I just shut her down.
Have you thought about leaving where you're at or changing? Because I was talking to Leo from R3, and he's like, yeah, he hasn't even changed. He still lives in the same place he was, and like, social media fame tends to move people, I guess.
Well, like for us, we're just getting into all the car content and being that it's just me in the shop working on stuff, my projects don't come out as much, right? Like I took a whole year building this car, but my wife really wants to move down to Florida, but this is winter down here, and I'm already get sweated out. So
It's been a hot winter.
yeah, I do enjoy the cold, but where we're at, it's like we're out in the country. Like we've had a few people that have found where we're at and have stopped by, but yeah, where we're at, I got a good place. I got some land that I can mess around on and do different things. So
Yeah, really, people already found you. I mean, I've seen a couple videos where the shop looks pretty out in the middle of nowhere.
like there's
Takes a lot of effort for somebody to get there.
Well,
to you, it seems like.
the funny thing, the last guy that found me was completely by accident. He knocked on our door to ask for, like, because I have about 150 vehicles out back, so I got a bit of a scrapyard, and they were
That's
out.
all?
Yeah.
150?
Well, that's actually low. Like we hauled in scrap, and I got rid of, I don't know, 70 or 80 of them when scrap was good. But
A lot of vehicles.
yeah,
It's like vice grip garage level vehicles.
yeah. So I got lots of projects that I could do different stuff with, and that's where we started thinking like we should do some car content. But that guy, he was driving by and he seen all the square bodies I have, and so he stopped in to ask about some parts, and I open the door and his eyes get big. He's like, "You're the No Way guy." It's like, you found me. It's like, and then you kind of worry about it, right? Like, is this guy going to go and tell his friends, like, this is where he's at and stuff like that?
Yeah.
So,
This is where he hides his square bodies.
yeah.
This is the collection.
But, yeah, we've had one guy follow me home from Vulcan and then drive by slowly. Like, so you get them worries, but it's been pretty good. We're out in the middle of nowhere, and it's kind of hard to find us.
Yeah. Like, I think, like Garrett deals with it, but he's, it's pretty busy around here. It's a lot of people. It's like a vacation area. People come in, like, people that normally wouldn't be around pop in because it's just how it is around here.
Yeah, for sure.
We got beaches.
Yeah. Yeah, we're in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing scenic about our area, so we don't have a bunch of people vacationing in our spots.
So how did you amass such a junkyard? How did you, was this just like, drop the vehicle off? Were you buying these?
So it started when I lived with, like, when I was about, 14, 16 years old, and my dad used to demolition derby. And so I wanted to do that when I was old enough. So I started collecting vehicles, and he had a few. And so when I lived on the farm at Mom and Dad's, I started bringing vehicles home there for demolition derby and oval. Like we raced oval track and figure eight racing. So we were kind of collecting parts vehicles for that. And then when I bought my acreage, it just like collect them for demo derby. So, I mean, I think there's about 25 71 to 76 full-size Pontiac cars. It's just my favorite car to demolition, so I got a lot of them. And then I got Impalas and stuff like that too. But yeah, it kind of got known in the area that I took scrap. So yeah, someone had something, and people don't realize when you got a Crown Vic with cats on it, you buy the car for $250 or $300, but you're gonna get $400 for the cats off of it. Mm-hmm. So that was part of my welding business.
Some people do realize how much cats are worth in the US.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a bit of a thing now.
Yeah. That was part of the welding business, was doing scrap metal. And so, yeah, pretty much anytime anyone had anything, I'd haul it home. And
just park it out there, take parts off as you need, and then just they end up sitting.
This is all before social media, and like it was getting hard to find derby cars, and because people would consider our cars classics. So I started up scrap, I called it Century Iron Auto Parts, and I had cards made up and stuff, and it was just something I could give people that, like, okay, I'm trying to buy your 70s Caprice or whatever, but he thinks it's a classic car. It's worth $1 million. And no, I have a parts yard. I sell parts off these cars. And so it was not so much duping people. I did have some of those cars that I was driving as well. So I was using them for parts. But then, I mean, half of the cars are so rotten that they aren't ever going to be back on the road. So
Yeah, I mean, we're not talking cars that we're talking like the Rust Belt of
Yeah.
the U.S., where they're
Yeah.
salting roads and people driving these things through the winter where they're rusted out
Yeah.
and their frames falling out from under them.
yeah, we got stuff there that
People hear an Impala and they're like imagining the nicest one of all time.
yeah, exactly. But I mean, we've sold some of. I had a '74 Caprice station wagon, and it was a big block car, and it was mint. There wasn't a speck of rust on it, but mice had got into it, so there's no interior in it. And I brought it down to the States and sold it for like $4,500, and I only had maybe 500 into it. And there's a big following for the donks or whatever, right? And
Yep.
if you do have a mint one, there's a market for them. But
Big wheel racing in the U.S. has become a thing now.
Yeah.
And not even just racing, but big wheels in general. It's only cool when they're racing.
yeah,
If they're going down the drag strip, I can tolerate it.
yeah,
Otherwise, not it.
yeah. I've seen some of them, and I'm just like, that looks ridiculous. But I try not to. Everyone has their own idea of what's cool, right? And I mean, people hate my Chevelle. That I put all this money into a 4-door Chevelle. Why not a 2-door? I'm like, man, I love this 4-door. I take my family in it. It's so easy
Yeah.
with the kids. And being a hard top, you put down it's called a sports sedan. So it's still, I think it's an SS.
People always hate on the 4-door, like they always hate on the 4-door Novas. They always hate on the 4-door
Yeah.
Chevelles. And I don't really get that. It's like, seems kind of cool to me.
Yeah.
I like 4-doors.
Well, like all the 4-door, they're actually getting super hard to find now because all the 4-doors were used for parts for the 2-doors, right? And so when we got that 4-door,
Demolition.
yeah, we took that car to its first car show, and I mean, all the old guys like just flocked to it. Like they're surrounded. I haven't seen a 4-door hardtop in years. Like, where'd you find this? This is a nice car. And I'm like, it's a 4-door. I'm like, I didn't know it was cool. And like but then you see like the younger people, and why didn't you get a 2-door? Like, well, that was 5 times as much money to get a 2-door. So,
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about some of the older muscle cars and what, my, grandpa at the time probably was like, those suck. That one's cool. This one sucks. Now they all just seem cool.
Yeah.
There's not like, oh, that one sucks, because they're just these older, like a nice older muscle car is cool.
Yeah.
Or even like a big body car. Like, I don't know if you'd even call that a muscle car. There was probably contention at the time.
Yeah.
Now it's like, compared to what else is in the world.
Well, you look at what's classed as a classic now, and you look in 20 years, is a Tesla going to be a classic that everyone wants to fix up, right? Like there was a period of years of cars that really hit, and like you're never going to find them again. You're never going to find another 4-door Chevelle. In 20 years, you probably won't ever find those cars.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think the older stuff it's all getting really cool now because the rarity of it.
Just across the board, yeah. I mean, it's all definitely way cooler than any of the new shit.
Yeah.
For just like nostalgia purposes
Yeah, for
only.
sure.
And I don't know, they're just cool, and finding them in good condition seems so impossible too. And like you're talking about, you got 150 cars, and how many of them are rotted out?
Yeah.
Even if
pretty
somebody
much
did
everything.
want to restore them, it's just not possible.
Yeah, and that's like
Putting a frame under them.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing is a lot of these cars that we're finding, they're sunk down in the dirt because they've been out in a farmer's field for so long, so the frame has got rot in it, and once you get frame rot, I mean, then you're like, are you going to put the time and effort into it?
Yeah.
I lucked out with my Chevelle. It was actually a true barn find, and it was off the ground. There was a little bit of rot in it, but it was all the rot that was in it. ended up cutting it out for the mini tub we did, and the cage and the floor work we did. It all got cut out, so it worked out.
So what'd you have to do to get the derby cars ready then? Is that where you got your like welding start from?
No, so my welding start was basically I was gonna fail high school. I wasn't gonna graduate, and was in the welding program, and I kind of owe it all to my my welding teacher in high school. He was like, "You need to do some sort of project, like some sort of project that I can give you credits for different things." And so I was doing work experience with a welder, and he kind of showed me his love for welding, and I took that on. But I ended up, for my grade 12 welding project, was a potato gun. So it's about 7 feet long and sits on a big tripod turret, and it's got 2 handles in the back. And I mean, you can't shoot potatoes out of it because it just disintegrates them, but we shoot tennis balls filled with rocks clear out of sight. And so I said to
Is this legal in Canada?
Yeah, well, so I had said to my instructor, or my teacher, I was like, "Wow, can I build a potato gun?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's cool. That sounds good." So I went out and to the welder that I was working with for work experience, and I told him my idea, and we figured out what all we were doing. I drew it all up, so I got credits in pipe fitting and welding and design CAD and different things which allowed me to graduate. But yeah, it's that was kind of my start to welding. But then the work experience with the welder that I was with, and he's passed away now, but he kind of showed me the love of welding and going out and meeting with the customer and fixing their stuff, and I really enjoyed it. So basically straight out of high school I went and started welding. And then the derby stuff, I mean, wow. I guess when I turned 16, the first welding I did was I pulled my truck in the shop, cut the exhaust off, and put straight pipes on.
As one does.
And I used an oxy torch and a coat hanger to weld the exhaust back together. And so that's my first welding experience. But
there's millions of people in the world right now thinking, hell yeah.
Yeah, that's what I did too. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of what got me going in welding was having to pass high school, and I just grew to love it. But the demolition derby stuff, I mean, now there's so much welding, and depending on what class you run, but we strip everything out of them. There's no interior. We cut the firewalls out for the engine, so the engine will actually come back in past the firewall when they bend so far. So we cut the firewall out so that the engine can come back and your transmission doesn't jam and break in half. And
wow, I didn't realize it was so in depth like that, where you're cutting trans tunnels and firewalls out, and
yeah,
do you just sit there with the engine, right? Kind of like,
oh yeah, like so. There's some guys, they'll cut the whole trans tunnel out and their drive shaft yoke is sitting right beside them. And I try to leave enough in there that covers all the critical parts in the transmission that if it blows apart, you're not... But if a transmission blows up, it's going to go through the firewall. So now guys are running transmission protectors, and engine cradles, and they actually pressure the engine tranny into the car to hold the front end down. But we're starting to get to the point where you got to keep yourself... We're starting to realize it's not just a redneck thing. When my dad did it, it was bone stock. You chained your doors shut, and you didn't weld nothing on the car. You just chained your doors shut, and that was that. And now it's progressed from chain and bang to where we were running 8-inch channel iron on the outside of the doors to protect us, to now we're running full inside cages made out of like 6x6 square tubing. And like with the engine protectors, like guys are running, you wouldn't think, but guys are running like 600 horsepower in these cars. Like my engine that I have in my derby car, it's a 383 stroker. It's built specific for demolition derby from Umscheid racing engines, and I mean I've ran it for half hour with no water, and it just runs stronger and stronger the hotter it gets.
So are you still pretty active in that community then, or have you kind of?
We ran.
Seems like a good way to ruin your body.
Yeah, it does. When you first start doing it and you don't understand how to take the hits and stuff like that, like you think about like a drunk driver will usually walk away from a accident just because his body, like, he either passes out or something like that, right? And that's the thing when you're in a derby, if you're bracing for hits, it jars your whole body. And like when you're backing into someone, as I'm backing into someone, right before I hit them, I'll look forward and just kind of go limp just so I can absorb it, right?
Just kind of jelly bounce with it a
Yeah.
little.
And it really does a toll on your body. Like, my neck goes out very easily now, but
That's kind of what I would worry about mostly. Maybe I'm just being a wimp.
no, like, I mean, I wear I wear a motocross protective vest, like, because I've hit the steering wheel hard enough that it's bent it over and broke it off of the firewall. So I wear a chest protector, elbow pads. There's guys that wear knee pads, and like, we're wearing not full fire suits, but we'll wear FR coveralls, because I mean, you get a transmission that gets hot and lights up. Like, a transmission fire is one of the biggest fears, I guess, in demolition derby, or splitting your fuel tank and that lighting up, because everything's inside your cab with you, right?
Yeah, in the frame
You have
rails,
your
right?
fuel tank right behind you. You have your transmission cooler right beside you. Your batteries are beside you. So all the stuff that can hurt you is inside the car too. So you have to make all that safe. But yeah, it's quite the thing to build a car now as opposed to what it was 30 years ago.
Yeah, and so is that still pretty readily available around you, where derby cars are still like, your kids might be like, I want to drive one?
Well, and that's kind of where I started collecting cars. Is the cars are getting harder to find. So my kids, to find a 70s old iron is going to be pretty far in between when they get to where they can derby. So I'm never going to use everything I have. So they'll get to experience the old iron. But now, like, Crown Vics, they're huge. And I know, like, Garrett, he's hoarding them all over at the Freedom Factory. Like,
Yeah, you saw that the other day, I'm sure.
I didn't actually get back to see all the Crown Vics. I wanted to, because that would make people cringe that how many he has. Because I watched a video last night, and I think he said he has like almost 200 or something like that, or 100 at least.
Yeah, I believe he's got to have bought well over 100 by now. How many he has left, I don't know.
Yeah, but yeah, like, Crown
They're starting
Vics
to last longer.
Yeah.
The original ones that he got weren't lasting that long, because when they blow up or a simple parts failure, they were kind of just like scrapped.
Yeah.
But now I think he's realized, well, it's a lot cheaper actually to just
keep fixing
put a
them.
tie rod or a diff in them.
But yeah, like, I have, I don't know, I think 10 or 15 Crown Vics. I haven't really got into building the Crown Vics yet. I like my old irons, so. But there's a lot of derby. You could derby every single weekend in the summer.
Really?
In Canada. And it's the same in the States. It's huge down here. There's actually one about an hour away here in Florida this weekend. But
Yeah, I'm not super in on the derby scene in the world. It's a little bit out of my normal.
Well, and it's weird so I never had anything drag racing on any of my social feeds until we started talking about it, and then all of a sudden it is. But now that we've talked about demolition derby and your phone is here, you're probably gonna get some derby stuff.
It's gonna
pop
know,
up.
yeah. I don't know. Maybe the Canada's a little worse about it. We'll see if I don't know. They're definitely listening to us.
Yeah.
We'll see what derby stuff pops up. I think I know what track you're talking about. East Bay, I think it is, has some derby stuff, but they have dirt.
Yeah.
Would you prefer dirt or asphalt?
I haven't ran on asphalt.
So it's always dirt.
Yeah, it's always dirt.
Which is probably better because if a car hits, it slides a little bit. It doesn't just like remain stopped.
No, like, so usually on like asphalt, they'll wet the track down and cars will kind of slide around and bounce. But like you get a good dirt track with a good base and you will get the sliding. But a lot of them, it's a tore up track. And I mean, you hit them and the tire digs in and yeah, like you're taking all
just
the force.
Dead stop.
Yeah. It's.
Yeah, it seems like a lot. I definitely should take my son to one. He might enjoy it now.
Yeah.
He just turned 1, so I don't know if he'll really grasp what he's seeing, but maybe.
Yeah, Demolition Derby, it's something everyone needs to go and see. It's a lot of people say it's just this redneck thing, but it's turned into like engineering cars to bend a certain way. Like,
yeah.
With how the rules are now, you can add plates to the frame and stuff. So guys will add them in certain spots so it'll bend here rather than here. And then when it does bend, you still have steering, right? Mm-hmm. And it's really progressed from what it's been. And the stage is huge now. Like they had a derby at Bristol this year or last year.
That's pretty cool. Bristol's awesome. That track it's so small, but it's so big at the same time.
Yeah, I haven't been there. I would love to go and see it.
Yeah, it's cool. So we did Demolition drag racing at one point.
That's
way early on.
Yeah.
And it was just a shitbox car, no safety really, like cut your airbags out, and I think you had to take like the windows out or something, or the back windshield. I think they let us leave the front one in because the tempered glass, it didn't really
didn't shatter
all over the track. I did have an airbag hit me in the face, and I did have a PT Cruiser destroy its transmission, just exploded.
Yeah.
But the rules were you had to hit once before you made it to the finish line.
Yeah, I watched some of those videos, and I was like, man, I wouldn't want to have to clean up that drag strip after, but
Same.
It looked like a lot of fun.
Probably why we stopped doing it.
Yeah.
The transmission giving out at like 500 feet, probably a big mess.
Yeah.
It's a lot of trans fluid on a track.
Yeah.
So then what's your future plans going forward with the car? When I know we talked about parts coming, but get it ready for Miles of Mayhem, get it ready for Sick Summer.
So we have we're on the waiting list for Sick Summer. So if we get the email that we've made it in, then we'll plan on going to that. But yeah, we're in Miles of Mayhem. We are running Drag Fest in Ontario. So it's a airport drag race in the middle of like just a small Terrace Bay, small town, but this car club got this old airport and they've turned it into a drag strip, and they had, I think, 350 cars there last year.
Oh, wow.
For
cool.
this long weekend race. And so I said to him, I was like, well, when our Chevelle's done, I'm coming to race it because it looks like so much fun. And so, yeah, those are kind of the three that we're planning on. And then we're going to try and do some Friday night street races at some of the tracks at home. And
Did you make the top 100 list at Sick Week? I feel like you're probably close.
No, I was out. I think 1064 was the cutoff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say you probably were close for trying to get into the next events because top 100 always get like the entry in.
Yeah, no, I would have loved to, but we couldn't get into the 10s with the car. But I think with what we're planning to do with it, so it's currently broke. We had planned on driving it down here and all the stuff that we were doing, and yeah, I wanted to take it all over and do some beach shots with it and all that fun stuff, and then we broke it. So mind you, it still runs and drives. But yeah, like we're gonna get it home, we're gonna pull the sniper off of it and replace it with a high ram, and we're gonna put a Dominator system on it with the Pro Charger. We have an F1A 94 at home for it already.
Nice.
And yeah, we're just
That's a big Pro Charger.
Yeah. Well, and it was funny. They're like, well, what size of Pro Charger? I'm like, man, I have no idea.
Yeah.
He's like, well, how much power do you want? And I said, well, I'd love to have over 1,000 horsepower engine. And so they said, okay, the F1A, it's good for 12, 13. So yeah, that's what we have for it. And it was funny when you're in a shop like KSR and you see the cars that they're building there and the caliber that they're building. And so I got a whole bunch of ideas in my head, like the fuel tank, and because I still have the stock fuel tank, so
Yeah.
I want to build an aluminum tank for it that makes it easier to take the fuel pump out and all that stuff. Like this car, it's going to be a drag and drive car now and a weekend cruiser, so you try to make it as easy to work on as you can, right? And you use as many easily available parts. That's one thing that we learned. The alternator that we had on it originally was a hard alternator to find. And so we modified our brackets to get a cheap off-the-shelf alternator that I can find anywhere if I need it.
Yeah. Yeah, across the board, fuel pumps, everything has to be as readily available as possible.
Yeah.
And that's part of the crutch of all drag and drives is people use these one-off parts, and it's like, well, cool and all, but
it's cool until it breaks, and then you have to go to the Summit trailer and overnight something to the next track. Then then it hurts. We found that out. Like obviously shocks are something that you got to have good shocks. And when we blew out both the passenger side shocks on the car, and we thought it was just the back one. And so, yeah, I ordered new shocks from Summit, and $1,000 later, yeah, they're at the next track, and we put them in, and the car's still doing the big body roll, and I'm like, what's going? Because we tested everything we could, like on jack stands and everything, but turns out one of the front ones is blown out too. So then that's where Finnegan was like, just put a ratchet strap on it. So
yeah. And one thing that I actually was meaning to make like a longer form video on is the trailers. I'm sure you were probably thinking the same thing when you, as somebody who like fabricates and stuff, you see what people do with these trailers on drag and drives, and it's just like.
So I was running out of time. Like it was, like I was just trying to get the car done so I could leave, and then I was like, oh, I need a trailer. And I was thinking, well, shit, I got a back seat in this. Like my dad showed up with a 70s roof rack that we put on the car. And I was like, we got the full trunk because we don't have a fuel cell in it. And so I tried packing the car at home with everything. And I'm like, I can't get both my slicks in the trunk. So, okay, we'll put them onto the roof. But we couldn't get everything into the car that we needed. So then I bought that little plastic trailer. And it was grateful. But the trailers that guys have are just amazing. Like the way that they're set up, like they'll open up and it's all of their brake clean and stuff like that on a shelf, and then
the tools are like perfectly on hooks. I feel like it's like a man thing where you're just like, you see like a nicely laid out trailer and you're just like, nice.
Oh yeah, I went and looked at some of the trailers and I was like, this is just gorgeous. And I took some pictures of them. So I'm gonna build a trailer. It's just whether or not I have the time.
Yeah.
When you're building stuff for yourself, it seems like it never gets done.
Such a time-consuming thing to make those deals like that, and it's like a big project. People don't realize, but then you hear, like, I showed up with my race car in the trailer, and people just walk by the race car. Yeah. They want to look at the trailer.
Yeah. So that's one thing that we were kind of constricted with the size that we could have too, because our hauler is only 24 feet. The car is 16 and a half feet. So I had to make sure with my toolboxes in the trailer and what I could fit my drag trailer in there. Mm-hmm. And so I looked at 3 different trailers and I had a tape measure and I'm like, no, this one's an inch too big. And this one will work if I stand it up on end and make the hitch removable, and that'll work. But then I was like, but it just looks ratty and I don't. So then I looked at this little one and I was like, I guess that one will have to do.
I mean, I personally had to have somebody bring my trailer to Georgia because I couldn't put it on my trailer with it. So the little trailer had to be trailered separately, basically. We had a flatbed with like 4 different little trailers all made it to Georgia.
Yeah.
Just because they're big. They take up a lot of space.
Yeah. Well, and that's like seeing some of these guys and how they packed their trailers on when they showed up. And like, I mean, I had mine strapped in the front, standing up on end and a wheel off so that I could run my strap holding the car down. And then after the show, I was like, this thing would probably just fit in the back of the truck. So, and sure enough, it fits in the back of the truck. So now that's how we're going to haul it around.
Yeah. Well, I even see some of these trailers I'm like, that looks heavy. And they're so packed down with so much stuff. I was like, I used like a small bag of tools basically was like what I thought I needed versus what I actually needed were very different.
That was a huge thing too. Like when we were packing at home and we're trying to think of every situation that we might be in. Okay, if we got to pull the transmission out, if we got to do this, if we got to do this. So we're packing every single tool. We got specialty tools with us and just unpacking it every day at the track. And we're like, we didn't even look at this bag. Like, and all that stuff, like we don't need. So now going to the next one, we definitely know what we can take out of the trailer and out of the car and save weight and all that stuff.
Yeah, my first 2 years I did what you did was tires and a fuel jug on the roof and everything was packed in it like you were talking about, and it was just like it was rough.
Yeah.
Unloading every day at the track and then reloading, it was just like I was like, this sucks.
Yeah.
At least like I had to unload my trailer a lot, but it was way better than like squeezing everything into a car.
Yeah, well, and then like we took merch with us too. So, I mean, we had merch in the back seat, and then you got your luggage, like your clothes and stuff too. Like that was another thing. We completely forgot about our clothes and everything. So we had the car, everything's packed, and then there's our 2 suitcases for the week of, which I mean, really, we could have taken half of what we did because you didn't sleep that much and you kind of just rode it out in the same clothes.
That first day, I don't think anybody slept.
No, that was...
We didn't get until like 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Into Bradenton, and I heard people that were like, yeah, we just showed up at the track. It's like,
yeah, well, so we got into Bradenton at 12:30, which was early for...
Relatively early compared to everyone else.
And as we pulled into our hotel, our fan wiring pulled apart and the car overheated. And so, yeah, that was about the only issue that we had. But that night, I mean, all night you heard people, like until morning, people coming in and even just sleeping in the parking lot, getting a couple hours. And
yeah, it was rough. I know a lot of people were talking about dropping out after that because they were just like, I'm too sleep deprived. It's not safe.
Yeah.
And that is a fear.
Well,
being too sleep deprived.
So it was kind of funny. Like we were driving and like I was getting tired, and we stopped at one of the last gas stations we stopped at, and I come out with I had some packages of peanuts, and my co-pilot, he's like, "What's with the peanuts?" I'm like, "I'm tired." He's like, "Well, what's with the peanuts?" I'm like, "It's like straight protein. Like this will wake me up. It's better than a rock star or anything like that." So I ate a couple bags of peanuts and I was good to go. For
at least something just to like keep your mind busy too. Of like, I need to eat something to like just stop the boredom. And I don't know how your car is, but my car, like, it just drones and makes this noise that kind of like makes you groggy-ish. Maybe it's carbon monoxide poisoning.
Oh, well, yeah, that too. Like anytime we stopped, because I have side pipes on it. You have front exhaust, so that's even worse. But my side pipes, if we start slowing down, you could smell the exhaust. So
yeah,
we got to change that a little bit. But yeah, that first night, I mean, so when we were looking at the GPS, and Ken's like, "Yeah, we got half an hour," and so I'm driving along, and I was like, "How much longer?" He's like, 25 minutes. I'm like, there's no fucking way we still got 25 minutes. I've been counting in my head like we should be 10 minutes away.
Yeah. Well, I was getting frustrated too because like the GPS would say 20 minutes, but I know I'm slower than what the GPS says, which is rare. Normally, you're either like, if you're driving a regular car, you're probably right on it or a little faster.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know if the GPS says 20, it's probably 40 for me for some reason, just because... Yeah, the nature of driving the cars sucks.
Yeah, Well, and that's another thing too. Like I don't know, like your car's probably geared. Like what can you do on the highway with yours?
I mean, 3,000 RPM was like 55, 60.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we
That's
were
kind of where we hung out at.
Yeah, we were 65 and we were about 2,900 and I was like, I don't want to push it much more than that.
That's how I felt. I was like, my poor valve train. But then the last day, I was like, you get progressively more heavy-footed as it goes. Like the last like 20 minutes to Georgia, I'm like 3,500 RPM.
Yeah.
I'm like,
That was like us too. We pulled onto the 75 at Valdosta there and I was like, I just want to get there. So we're going 75 with everyone else and the car's just screaming and Ken's like, you could probably just slow down. I'm like, no, I want to get there. Let's get there, break beams, and we're done.
I was like, my poor valve train, just hold on. And then like I saw the oil temp was getting higher throughout the week too because the oil's getting a little thinner and it's just like, of course. But it was a good week. We didn't get any rain like the other time, so that was nice except for that first test day. Which, whatever, kind of helped other people.
Yeah, we luckily we bought the Sunday testing, and it was absolutely gorgeous that day. And then to show up to rain the next day, we're like, okay, well, at least we got tech the day before, so we didn't have to sit in tech line in the rain. But we had a bunch of stuff to fix on the car after testing, like with our bushings melting and stuff like that. So
who was your co-pilot?
So Ken Arthur from back home, he, a funny story. I met him, we did an event and we were staying at a casino in Calgary. And so me and the wife, we were down gambling a little bit and drinking and he seen my What No Way shirt and came up and he's like, you actually that guy? I'm like, yeah, that's me. And he's like, you drink for free tonight, I'm buying you drinks. I'm like, okay. And we got talking and it was funny. Like, so when you're drinking with someone and you always get the drunk talk, right? And he's like, yeah, I got the fastest Chevelle in Calgary, the fastest Chevelle on the street. And I was like, oh yeah. And I hadn't told him about my car and obviously, and he hadn't watched any of the videos that we were building it.
Yeah.
And so he was talking about his car and it's a gorgeous car. It's a 69 Chevelle, big tire car and it's street car. And so then I said to him, I was like, yeah, I'm building a Chevelle too. And he's like, oh, what do you got? So I told him everything I was doing. And he's like, man, that's going to be a fast car. I was like, yeah, I think it might be faster than yours when it's done.
New fastest Chevelle in Calgary.
So we got talking and got to be friends. And he said that night, like, I thought it was just drunk talk. He's like, hey, if you ever need help, like with the wiring or anything, like this is what I do for a living. I work on race cars and I'll help you with the wiring. And so I gave him my number and I said, I'll give you my number, but I don't want if you text me at like 2 a.m. ever, I said, I'll block you. And it was 1:30 that night. He sent me a text and he's like, hey man, it was great meeting you. Just want to let you know, like, I was serious. If you need help on the car, just let me know. And I was like, all right, I'll let this one slide.
No 2 a.m. texts.
Yeah. So the next day I texted him back and I was like, oh, well, I appreciate it and everything. And then when I got to the wiring stage on my car, and I hate wiring, and I was just overwhelmed with it because I had taken all the wiring out of the car and I kept it all together that I could put it back in. But then I got thinking, well, if I'm putting all this new stuff in, Dakota Digital, all that stuff, I should put new wiring in. So I got a hold of him and he offered to come wire the car for me and help out with a bunch of stuff. And so I asked him if he wanted to come and run sick week. And I said, if anything in the wiring goes wrong, at least you know where it is. And luckily, none of his wiring was an issue. And
yeah.
But no, he's turned into a pretty good friend. But sitting in a car with someone for a week,
there's usually fights. Usually co-pilot and pilot fight a little bit.
Well, it was funny. Like, there was a couple times that I felt like I apologized to him. I was like, yeah, I might have overreacted a little bit because we missed a couple turns because, like,
we did too.
He's like, yeah, you got to turn at Highway 41. And then I drive by Highway 41 and I was like, and I watched another dragger turn there. I was like, was I supposed to turn there? Well, was that 41? I'm like, you're supposed to be looking for this. Like, that's the co-pilot's job. And it wasn't until after sick week was done, like we fought back and forth about it, and it was kind of funny. I'm like, you're supposed to look for the signs and tell me exactly where to turn. I'm supposed to just make sure this bitch isn't overheating and all that stuff and keep it on the road. And he's like, well, you got to look for signs. So we went out for supper with a bunch of guys from sick week on this Saturday night. And I like stopped the conversation. I was like, okay, you guys have been doing dragon drives for a while now. I got a question about the co-pilot, and I see Ken, he's like, okay, here we go. And so I said, is it the co-pilot's job to make sure to give you turn-by-turn directions as if they're Siri or Google Maps or something like that? And everyone's, yes. You shouldn't have to look for a sign. So I was like, I told you, you bastard.
Mine was doing the same thing. So I'm just immediately cracking up because he would do this thing where he'd be like, oh, you're turning left in a mile.
Yeah.
And then he'd be gone. Yeah. And then he's like, he wasn't there anymore. I'm like, yeah, but like a mile it's hard to gauge, and like,
especially at 2 a.m. when you're driving and tired and everything like that. And
yeah.
Like, it's not
like you're hyper focused on like it takes a lot of adrenaline, basically. At least for me, it was just like constant adrenaline dump to be like hyper focused on driving this thing with no power steering, like keeping it out of a ditch.
Yeah.
Not great headlights. Like, it's not like an easy thing to just cruise.
So, yeah, he did that a few times. He's like, you got to turn in a mile. And it wasn't until the last day where I was like, you need to give me turn by turn by, like, you need to tell me what lane I need to be in. Like, so when we pulled out, actually, I think it was here in Bradenton, we pulled out of the thing, and he's like, yeah, you turn onto the highway here, and then you got to make a left. I was like, okay. So we turned onto the interstate, and he's like, you got to turn right there. And I was like, I didn't know I had to, like,
that's 3 lanes over.
Yeah, so I just put on my signal light, and I was like, good luck, everyone. And I just went across, and yeah, there was people honking at me. I'm sure people swearing and cussing about that. And I was like, man, you need to tell me that I got to, like, cut 3 lanes and, like, where I got to be.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to, like, Jim and Brett with the green Mustang, and Jim was like, yeah, like, me and Brett really haven't fought yet, so it's going well.
Yeah.
It's just how it is. And even, like you're talking about clothes, Brett on the first day was like, yeah, I didn't bring any clothes.
Oh, really?
Had to go back and get it all. Jeez. Like, everything on the car, perfect. Clothing for himself,
yeah.
Just didn't even think about it.
Well, it was funny. I didn't pack enough socks. So my wife was coming up to, where was it? Gainesville. And I said, I need you to bring some socks for me. That's the only thing I need. Is if I got clean underwear and socks, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
And I had enough underwear, so I just needed some socks to get through, because I did not want to wear sweaty, gross socks all week.
Yeah. So what else have you done in the States then? What else have you enjoyed about Florida? Anything in particular? Yeah,
so we took the kids to Universal, and they enjoyed that. My 2 oldest boys, so they're 8 and 7, and they wanted to experience a roller coaster. And we might have taken them on one that was a little bit too big for them. We were there, and I was like, well, I want to go on this one. So me and the wife, and we'd take turns and stuff. So, but the kids, they were like, we want to go on too.
So the one that kind of goes through the water a little bit? That one?
No.
That's a pretty big one.
Yeah, that's the Hulk, and I like that one. So it's the red one over at Universal, and it's pretty big. It's got a couple loop-de-loops.
Oh, the dragon one maybe? I haven't been there in a long time.
What is it?
There was the dueling dragons they used to have.
No, it's not that. It was a hot rod one or something. You could pick your music that you got to listen to while you were on it, which was kind of cool. But the kids ran up to the minimum height sign to see, and sure enough, they were both high enough. And I was like, all right, let's go try it. So my wife sat in the seat right beside my oldest son, and then I sat beside my youngest, and it goes straight up, eh? And like we're going straight up, and I look over at Wolf, and he's like, his eyes are just huge. Like, oh my God, what have I got myself into? And it's a straight down drop. And so Julie told me about her experience with Tor, and I know what my experience was, but I looked over at Wolf when we dropped, and his eyes just rolled into the back of his head, and he passed out. And I was like, oh, this ain't good.
Oh, wow.
So I got my arm holding his head up just because, like, he kept in and out of consciousness, basically.
Wow.
But
I did not expect it to turn that aggressively.
but every time he like opened his eyes, he like smiled and he's excited about it. And then we'd hit like like a sharp turn. His head would go like that. So I'm holding him so he doesn't get whiplash. But yeah, like 3 or 4 times he had passed out on this ride, and we get off and he's like, that was so much fun. And I'm like, that was terrifying for me. And Julie, she's
my wife would lose it.
Why did we do this? Why did we take him on such a big one? And I was like, well, like now we know.
They'll be better on the next one now.
Yeah, so we get over to the other park, and I'm looking at the Hulk, and I'm like, oh, I want to go on this one. And Tor and Wolf both, they're like, no, we're good. I was like, we'll start on some smaller ones next time for you. But yeah, they enjoyed it. They just passed out a couple times.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the fun, right?
Yeah.
I always joke because my wife talks about roller coasters. I'm like, it'd be really hard to find something that accelerates faster than my race car.
Yeah.
As far as like a roller coaster goes. And it's like, it's not like, it just is what it is. It's hard to find something that's as aggressive right off the hit.
Yeah.
Because I was pretty diehard roller coaster as a kid. I really enjoy them.
I love roller coasters, but I think with my age now, like I went on the Hulk years ago when I was like, well, I don't know, I guess like 10 years ago, and I loved it. I went on it this time, and I mean, I was getting tunnel vision. Like it was things were blacking out, and I'm like, I ain't passing out, and I'm riding by myself. So I got these 2 guys beside me, and they're like, are you a metalhead? I'm like, yeah, totally. Like, let's go. Trying not to pass out, but no, I love roller coasters just for the adrenaline rush, right? But yeah, I get what you mean. Like I did Frank Hawley's, and I mean, their dragster and their door car that they have, like the acceleration in those is just crazy.
Yeah, you probably went like 1.0 60 foot or 1.12 60 foot or something.
Like it was, I think the dragster was, I can't remember it. Like it was low 8s. And then same with the door car. I mean, it wasn't much slower, and I'd never experienced anything. That was a whole nother thing. Like we did the super comp class, and they're like, make sure your head is back against the seat and tuck your chin. And I was like, yeah, okay, and kind of put that out.
Yeah, sure, whatever.
Didn't even think of it. And well, you do 3 sets of runs, right? So you do a 300, I think it was 300 foot. And I stomped on the pedal, and like I had my head back, but the wind caught my helmet and pulled my head back like this. So, and I didn't want to let out, so I'm looking down my nose, making sure it's straight. And then I was like, okay, we need to tuck her chin and have her head back every time.
Yeah. That's probably the coolest part of all of this then, too, is the opportunities of, things like that.
Yeah.
Because that all comes about.
I wouldn't get to do any of this stuff without the viewers watching what we're doing, right? Like and everyone always says, like, you got to be sick of people coming up to you. And I try to make time for every single person that recognizes me and wants to say hello, because I'm getting to do some pretty cool stuff. Like NHRA, when they brought us out for the first race in Seattle and to put us on the start line and give us a nitro baptism, as they called it, and it pretty much hook, line, and sinker right there, right?
Yeah.
It hooked us, and then to get to go to Frank Hawley's and get our license. And so I have my Super Comp and my Super Gas license. And we figured, like, with how fast we want to go with our car, we needed to have the Super Gas license. And the car's not there yet, but we're hoping to get to that point.
Yeah, I just got my license too. Finally, after years of racing.
Well, and that was the thing. Like a lot of people had to get their licenses for sick week.
Yeah.
Like that's
what I had to do. I didn't have mine before. I needed it for this because they're so strict there.
Yeah.
Like even like you probably, that's why your cage is certified because of something like a sick week.
Yeah. Well, with how fast we want to go with the car, we had to have the 850 cert, right? Like once you go faster than a 10, you have to have a cage in it.
Yeah, well, my car for years had a cage, but just no sticker.
Yeah.
I never got it certified. And then I finally had to do it. Same deal for sick week.
Yeah.
Make sure that it was
And
certified.
I could have done less of a cage, but I figured more safety is better than less, right? So I was like, we'll just throw 2 more bars. Like I could have just done the hoop and the back bars. I didn't need to do everything to the front for where it's at right now.
There's just no point in doing less cage.
Yeah.
Especially at that level. There's just no point in doing like a hoop only.
Well, and the way I built the car, like it's got swing out door bars in it. And I mean, you take those out and it's getting in and out of the car like normal.
Yeah.
The cage isn't in the way at all. So I'm glad we put it in and did it the way we did it.
Yeah, I mean the car looked cool too. Like it had a great like presence to it. I like that color that it sits in. You know, like it's clearly well driven. Like it's not.
Well, and like we were supposed to, when we get home, we were going to pull the engine out and we were going to send the car off for body and paint. And then we had such a huge response that, I just love how raw it is. And then I've grown to love it just the way it is. And I love to fix the wheel wells, but I mean, that spray foam in there sealed up the back wheels. So I think we're probably just going to leave it the way it is. And
when I first saw you the one night you were with Emily and the Reeves.
Yeah.
Their truck, I absolutely love that thing.
Thing's awesome.
It's so freaking cool, and the patina and everything on it. I don't remember what they call that thing, but
Garfield,
yeah. With the bedside, like all the tools on the bedsides.
They said they had like 10,000. That thing weighed out at 10,000 pounds with everything they had in it loaded.
Yeah, so I'm cooking breakfast on it one day with a cast iron pan. I was like, that's like the heaviest thing you could bring.
Yeah, well. It was at Orlando, and we were fixing the car, and Emily comes up, and she's got a plate full of steak, and I'm like, where'd you get a steak at? She's like, we were cooking them on the back of Garfield. I'm like, that's awesome.
The benefits of not being a racer.
Yeah.
You can do things like that.
Yeah.
Because like you see the sick ward come up and they're like hanging out, they got themselves a hot dog, and then like the sick weekers are all dying.
Yeah.
Like they're actually in like early stages of death.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, well, I think our first sit down meal was the last night. Or no, like after it was all done and we went out with them other racers. That was the first actual meal that I sat down and had. Everything else was gas station and fast food. Yeah, your body. I didn't realize how hard it would be to do it. Like it's just like drag racing. You watch it on TV and you're like, yeah, anyone can do that. But I challenge anyone to take their drag race street car and try and do a drag and drive. It's a lot of work. But then you throw into the fact that guys like you and me, we got to have a video out every day because we're making content on it. So, I mean, I was up until 2, 3 in the morning. We get into the hotel at 12:30, but I was up till 2, 3 in the morning making the video that needed to be out first thing in the morning for people to watch the previous day.
Same. I mean, it was rough, and there was a couple of videos where people were like, this clip was in there twice. It's like, just ignore that. Don't mind that clip being there twice.
Well, like my co-pilot, he's like, I'll drive and you can sit over here and edit. And I'm like, man, this car shakes so much, and like I'm not good with the mouse pad on my laptop and like square cut and everything, and like it would make a terrible video. But then you got guys like Garrett that post him sitting there in his El Camino.
He's an overachiever.
Yeah.
I'm glad you got to experience the spark. Was it as terrifying as it appears?
Yeah, so you sit there and watch it, like, so standing there watching, and you're like, that's not bad. But then you hop in it and you're coming up and 60 mile an hour and like your eyes kind of get big. And when he pulls that e-brake, and when we did it, he pulled the e-brake and the car kind of bounced a bit. And I legit thought, I'm like, this is it. This thing's rolling. This is the time it goes over, because it's in the back of your head. Like,
Did you go limp a little bit? You're like, oh, well, I know how to do this.
yeah, here we go. But no, it was pretty terrifying, but it was fun. It's something everyone needs to experience. That's something he needs to do at the Freedom Factory, is take people for rides in the Spark and do the slide.
Who would have thought, like the simplest of things works so well.
Yeah.
Just a Spark.
Yeah.
Like a car that nobody really cares about.
Well, I said
normally.
to them, I was like, I got a car at home that's it's a small car. It's not a Spark, but I'm going to try this when I get home. I don't have a paved driveway like him, but I got lots of gravel and it's fun to slide around. So I'm gonna start up whatever car it is. I'm gonna
hard parking whatever vehicle you got at the time.
Yeah,
crashing into children's toys or
yeah, pretty much
running over a couple things here and there. Yeah, it's such a fun event though. The Sick Week. I really did have a blast, and like I told other people, with getting the helmet, even the people in the classes behind, like in my same class, I was kind of competing with myself that whole deal. Just to make it to the finish line was the competition.
Yeah, making it to the finish line, but then, you're trying to hit your number every day too, right? So you're racing yourself, and that's like we did dial your own. So I mean, where we dialed in at, and we're trying to hit that every day. We were sitting in. So we came on it, we're like, okay, let's just have fun and just finish the week. After day 2, we're sitting in 6th place out of 112 cars, and I'm like, all right, let's get serious. The competitiveness
We need to step this up a little bit here.
Yeah. And then we go to Orlando, and it was hot, and we couldn't get the car to do what we wanted, and we pretty much were out after that, but
Those guys are dialed in that can do that.
Oh,
like, on their number every single pass, like they're within a thou.
Yeah. We ended up, I think it was 65th place in the dial your own, which, I mean, I'm happy with. But we also didn't understand it 100%, because where we dialed in at, and my co-pilot went and talked to someone, and they're like, no, if you run faster, that's going to bring your average down. So we ran that 11:13. We dialed in at 11:36, and we ran that 11:13, and we're like, well, we'll hand this one in because it'll bring our average down. But we ran faster than what we dialed in at, so it hurt us and knocked us down. So I figured it out, and if I would have put my first pass in from the last day, I would have been in top 50 of dial your own.
Oh shit!
So. Yeah, it is what it is. But.
Yeah, it is part of it. That's kind of the dial your own. Most of it is just for fun, anyways. Most people aren't in like the actual competition. I feel like there's only a few people that are like super on it. Everybody else is just to run their car and enjoy the week.
And that's kind of what we figured. We knew we weren't going to be fast enough for any of the 850 classes. So but when we come back with a car with a Pro Charger on it and see what we like. I mean, if we can get the car into the 9s back home at altitude, we bring it down here, it's going to be a lot faster down here.
Yeah, it'll be like a low 9-second car, mid 9-second car, ideally, which would be awesome to bring on drag and drives. That's like a good spot to be at.
Yeah.
So, funny enough, you're talking about Robbie Layton. Great guy.
Yeah.
I had him on the show, but I had him on with Matt, Off-Road Recovery, and Rory. And Robbie was sitting here, and I didn't know Robbie at the time. I didn't know anything about him.
Yeah.
Just, there's people that aren't on your radar. And I got so much heat on the YouTube comments. So many people were so mad at me because Matt was coming on the show, and that's who I knew.
Yeah.
Robbie and Rory sat in, and I was like, okay, his friend sat in, whatever. I didn't really talk to them too directly. We did group, we talked, but it was mostly featured on Matt. People were so mad at me. And I just didn't know at the time. And I have since known Robbie now, and I've apologized to him for being a little too not.
It's crazy how the internet can just like they'll pick out things and just attack you on, right?
They were so mad.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. I didn't realize. And I probably should have known more about the person sitting next to me, but I just trusted he was with Matt's Off-Road Recovery.
Yeah. No, so I met Robbie through Demolition Derby back in, like when we used to go down to Utah and race down there. And that's where I met him. And
Oh, so you've known him for a while.
yeah, I've known him for a while. But yeah, I kind of owe this car build to him. Like, how do I get my YouTube going? Build a car. What do you got? And I said, well, I got lots of cars. You know this. And he's like, do something unique is what he said. And so I was like, well, I got the 4-door Chevelle. It's sitting there. We were going to build it. Like, it was kind of on my radar to build just even before all the social media. And he was like, do it. He's like, do something that no one else is doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the whole idea I was like, I'm going to have the only 4-door Chevelle at Sick Week. No. The first day there, and we're walking through the pits, and there's another 74-door Chevelle there racing in Sick Week. And
Did you have the fastest 4-door Chevelle, or was he faster?
no,
too?
I was faster.
Okay,
Yeah.
there you go.
But super nice guy. So I did a little video on the car, and he wasn't around, and then he came over and found me, and he's like, yeah, I got that other 4-door. And I was like, man, bring it over. Let's get them side by side. I was so excited about it, see another 4-door in decent shape and like them doing something with it. And it had a LS swap in it, and he ran, I think, low 12s with it, which isn't terrible. And they're going to put a supercharger on as their plan for summer. But it was cool. I said it'd be good content, and it'd be super cool just for both of us to race at some point. So I was just hoping to make it through the week so that we could race back at South Georgia. And my last pass was against him. We pulled him up.
That was cool.
Yeah, it was
That's
super
fun.
cool. And then that turned out to be my fastest pass of the week was
And you got to gap him.
yeah.
Nice.
But he treed me. I will give him that.
Oh, shit.
Yeah,
So it was close, but I'm sure.
Yeah, he did tree me. He got me on that.
Well, that 1 second tree rule makes it a little finicky, too, for some guys.
Yeah.
Because you can't go slower than 1.0 on the tree, or else they add it to your time at the end, which
Yeah.
it hurts if you can't. If you just bobble just a little bit, just like a little bit of a bobble, suddenly you're adding 0.2 to your time.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's cool. That's cool that Robbie's that connected. I didn't realize he was so connected to you like that.
Yeah, he's giving me advice on different things. Like he said, he's like, big thing with YouTube is collaborating with other YouTubers, right? And that's where at Sick Week there was a lot of YouTubers there, and it was cool. Like when Garrett was like, "You need to do a what no way on us having this engine," and I'm like, obviously,
Yeah.
And like when I seen Zach and Ty's car with the turbo and the pipes on the side, like everyone's like, that was a fake what no way. I'm like, no, that was legitimate. Like that was cool.
That thing was cool. I was like, man, this is a trick turbo setup on this thing. Like, good job, Ty, because like
sell those kits.
Yeah. The 20-minute turbo install, basically. Yeah, that was cool. Well, man, we'll let you get back to your family. Let's plug some stuff. You got merch. You got a Patreon. You got. Don't plug the TikTok because they won't pay you. Yeah.
No.
Facebook.
So if you go to whatnoway.com, 3 O's, 3 A's.
Mm-hmm.
That's our merch site, and it's got a link tree with all of our stuff. All of our stuff is at whatnoway, 3 O's, 3 A's.
It'll be in the description, of course, of the video.
And check out my YouTube. And YouTube, we're starting to do some car stuff. We'll be rebuilding the car. It's all broken right now. Well, we don't know how broke everything is. It'll be interesting to get it on the hoist and go through and see. But yeah, we'd like to keep doing this sort of stuff, and we love the car community. So if we can keep building some cars and people enjoy our builds, then we'll keep doing it.
It's funny you were like in the car community, but also like not, because all your videos were car community related.
Oh man, I get so much hate. Like, go back to what made you famous. Like, go back to the hack
You were in a
videos.
shop.
Yeah.
You had a toolbox. I was like, that's car content. Like, what do you mean?
Well, it's funny. Like, people would see the Chevelle in the background and they'd be like, oh, what's that car in the background? I'm like, I had a whole TikTok page about this car and no one wanted to watch it. Now that I have a following, everyone wants to know what it is.
Well, now they'll watch you do anything because you
Yeah.
have a following. You could do a cooking channel and they'll watch.
Exactly, yeah.
Good deal, man. Well,
Awesome.
I'll let you get out of here, guys. Go follow him, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, but we will see you later.